That's why I'm sure you're going to enjoy our speaker today and love hearing from Mr. Bronte Eckermann to speak about design as business strategy, innovations in cricket, the Zing flashing bails and stumps, and other things. Please welcome Bronte Eckermann.
Hi, we're just, okay, we're up and running. Good stuff. Okay, thanks. So I'm Bronte Eckermann. I'm inventor and of the Zing Cricket Wicket System and director of Zing International. So you may have, hang on, here we go. Is that all right? Can you hear me? So obviously you may have seen, So you may have seen this cricket wicket system that's now sort of proliferated through world cricket and all forms of the game. And got it. Is that good? Okay, good. So the first thing I just wanted to say is how good it is to be at Adelaide Oval. I mean, I'm sort of fortunate enough to be able to travel around and go to many sort of famous stadiums like Fenway Park and Camden Yards, MCG Lords, and Adelaide Oval is my favourite. I mean, I'm biased as a South Australian, but it really is an amazing place and a great place for any sports lover to come. The second thing I'd like to say is most people always ask me when they know work that I'm associated with the Zings, how did I come up with the idea? That's the first thing they always ask. And the short story is it involved a very good bottle of South Australian red wine. So I woke up at 3 a.m. on the couch, came up with the idea, jumped off and said, Eureka. So that's the actual story. The real story is a little bit more involved, but that's the one I like to use because I can say to my wife that the more red wine I drink, the smarter I get. There's my wife there, Tanya. So, in case you missed it, that was the opening gag. Obviously, I'm not a comedian, but actually, I do have a lot of respect for comedians, and I'm going to talk about that a bit later because I think the creative process for guys like Jerry Seinfeld and guys like Bill Burr is actually pretty interesting. Guys like John Cleese know how to do creative stuff, and I think engineers, we sometimes forget the creative process and how to come up with great ideas. I think we can learn a few things from comedians. So the first thing, I'll just quickly give you a demo of how this works. Now, can you hear me okay? The first thing, can you hear me? Yeah, okay, so the first thing is, these things are completely waterproof. So they keep on working. The next thing is, they are debris proof. So, get a bit of grass. Grass on there. There's a bit. So now that end is not in contact with the stump, they keep on working. You can tap them, and they don't go off falsely. You can spin them. Whoops. You can rattle them side to side, you can knock the stump, but they only go off to the rules of cricket when both ends lift from the stumps. So that's the main thing. Both ends of the bail have got to lift from the stumps before they flash. Now, that's actually a real scenario. So for example, when a bail is in high wind, there's a point, a velocity of the wind which it'll blow off the stumps, but just before it'll actually start oscillating in the stumps. So when this rapidly oscillates in the stumps under high wind, it doesn't falsely flash. And we've simulated this with some wind tunnel testing. We use some portable, highly focused wind simulation technology, otherwise known as the Zing leaf blower. highly technical. Does the job. But also the debris side is a real situation too, because once in Dubai, I went out after a game and I noticed one of the bales was sort of up at an odd angle. And when I got out there, I noticed that this whole end was caked in mud. And we looked at the video replay afterwards, and Chris Gale had come out, done a run, stepped in some mud, grabbed the bale, and used it to get all of the mud off his boot, put it back on, and it kept working. So we also have had to engineer it to withstand impacts at 165 kilometres an hour, which is not easy to do. Each frame there is 1,000th of a second. You notice that the bales light instantly within 1 millisecond when each end of the bale is dislodged from the stumps. So a lot of impact testing. Try doing that with your iPhone. Now, the Zings solve a problem.
Mind you, Bill, what are we talking about? They've got gloves on. Close if he hits.
Just do this one for a minute.
This might be a bit close. Oh, they're going to take the stump out, son. There's no bails. He asked the question for the first attempt to run out. You must take the ball and put it to the stumps and pull the stump out if there's no bails. This will be a very interesting replay. This is close than what we think, this first attempt.
Yeah, well, the direct hit can often surprise you. As a batsman, you'll think, I'm just in. If you think you're just in, maybe you're just out. It's line ball at the moment. Bale is lifting. Oh,
I'll spare you there. That runs for about 3 minutes. So, actually, the issue there is that in this situation, it looks the same, but this one's not out, that one's out. That one's not out, far one is out. So it's very difficult, obviously, for the umpire to distinguish the moment the bale lifts from the stumps. And the issue is that in each frame of TV, this is how far a batsman will move. This is based on 25 frames a second. Now, when a bale comes off slowly, and sometimes they bobble and come off, from the moment it actually dislodges, based on the research and testing we've done, to when you can actually notice it on TV, can be up to nearly a second. And that's the error that can occur. A batsman can actually move 1.5 metres in that time, worst case. So that's the problem that this product solves. In 1 millisecond, we're moving 7 millimetres, worst case. So that's the difference in the accuracy using this system as a umpire, as a decision review device, compared to normal technology. And excites the crowd, which my mum loves, because whenever she goes to the cricket, whenever someone's bowled, she's fishing around in her purse, and she asks, what happened? So now you've got a few seconds to see what happens, and the crowd gets unified at moments of, high excitement. So, from my point of view, what I like to sort of talk about with engineering is and design is there's 3 levels of proficiency. Design as an object is obvious. Design as a process is something I don't think we do very well in Australia. And design as business strategy. And when I came up with this idea, it wasn't just a sort of a quick idea that came at 3 a.m. in the morning. It actually took 12 months where I was looking to... I had 10 criteria. These are the top 3. These are the top 3. I wanted to solve a problem. I wanted to solve it in a unique and dynamic way. And I wanted it to be patentable. So this is sort of looking at design as a business strategy rather than coming up with a technology and then thinking, how do we commercialise it? I was looking at growing markets that I understood. Cricket, I used to play cricket. I was looking at maturing technologies, LEDs, they were coming down in price, so new opportunities. And I was looking at interesting products. My daughter had a little throw toy, 1 of these. You throw it, lands on the ground, it flashed, and I took it apart. And that morning at 3 a.m, that's when all these threads came together and the Zings was born. But that took 12 months. Now, one of my friends says, you must love it when you see your product out there. It must be your baby. And he doesn't believe me, but I say, it's not my baby. I view a new design or a new innovation as a pig. It's cantankerous, costs a lot of money, it's high maintenance, and if it's not in fighting fit and multiplying, you shoot it. So I spent the next 6 months trying to prove that this product worked, and also simultaneously trying to prove that I was wrong, to try and prove that, I was missing something obvious. So once I had the idea and I knew it was feasible, I needed a commercial partner because I knew that the other half of this was to actually get it into cricket, and that was going to be difficult. So my partner, David Lidgerwood, I was lucky he actually came back from a successful commercial sport business that he had in the UK, came back to Adelaide. We joined forces, put a business plan together, and went and got funding on our first go, which I think is the value of a good idea, a fundamentally good commercial idea. Things just happen. So from there, we did some camera testing and at the Gabba and Adelaide Oval with Foxtel. And our last hurdle was we spoke to Cricket Australia, and we had a meeting in a little room, and there was sort of stunned silence, and they eventually sort of went, okay, wow, we're keen for you guys to do the Big Bash. We then went to see Foxtel. We actually met them here in the old commentary box here at Adelaide Oval, and again, there was sort of stunned silence, and Damien Fleming was there, and after about 5 seconds, he just went to the producer, "Get your checkbook out!" So, thanks to Damien. So then we had a test at Salisbury Oval at 10 a.m. the week before the Big Bash, and we actually got, the first time we actually had a system fully built like this with charges, etc., was at 5 a.m. that morning. I didn't get any sleep. I hadn't had any sleep for a couple of days, and I reversed out and knocked my gate over. We got through the game. The system didn't actually work. It sort of stopped a few times. In between overs and breaks, we went out and gave it some CPR, but it didn't impact the game. And so, as far as cricket was concerned, it was fantastic. But we had a bit of work to do, and we sort of figured out the problem was probably the batteries weren't conditioned. So we spent all week conditioning batteries, cycling them, and they were slowly improving. But we had to make a call on the Thursday whether we were going to do the Big Bash or not. And my partner David rang me, we had a call, and we're pretty good at not overstating negatives and, underestimating sort of the positives. And so we're trying to be quite balanced, and we decided to go for it. We're going to do it. I thought, well, worst thing can happen is it's career suicide, but, but we're in the cab, and Dave said to me, I was really sort of persuaded by your optimism on the phone. I said, I thought you were being optimistic. So there's a little bit of a no shit moment there, but anyway, we put it into the Big Bash, and that year we were running onto the ground in between sort of overs occasionally, and just to reset the system and keep it going. So it was a struggle, but we got through, and sometimes the things that appear most risky are actually the less risky solution. So if we'd have had to wait for another 6 months or 12 months for another cricket tournament, we were burning cash. So I think that's pretty much it. One thing I think is if you're going to develop a product, most companies, I think, most corporations sort of want to, lower costs, systemize things, and I think that's a bad environment to sort of do design sometimes, to be innovative. I think if you look at comedians, they'll be creative, but they get up on stage, and if they bomb, they fail. They bomb and they feel it, and they have to go back and perfect their product. And it's a risky thing. Comedy's a risky thing. It needs and they're sort of like innovators. I mean, they're looking at a situation, they're taking a different approach to it. They're coming up with a product or a joke that, you know, looks at that problem from a different angle, and it's emotive. So in that sense, I think we can really sort of learn a lot from those guys. That's sort of a way, you know, I think the sort of a good process for coming up with innovation outside of a corporate environment. And I think often I sort of think companies in corporate environments sort of have a personality. If they were a person, if they invited you over to a party, they'd charge you for the Jats crackers. And I don't particularly want to run a company that charges people for Jats crackers, so that's it. Thank you.
Bronte, don't go away. Don't go away, Bronte. I'm sure there's some questions in the room. I'll start off and say that for those that are interested and have always lusted after a pair of flashing bales, they're $29.99 online from Zing International, so go and have a look. Seriously, Bronte, our northern neighbour, our neighbours to the north, aren't necessarily respectful of patents and legal proceedings. The biggest issue, I think, for innovations such as yours is making sure that you maintain your share of the dollars that come in. What issues have you had, or have you had any issues with that? How have you managed that?
Well, I think we haven't had any issues, and I think being first to market is also a big thing. But I think there's particularly in China, you're always going to get people, you know, knocking you off. But on a product like this, it's actually quite useful because, you know, the nature of the product, there is actually even if you want to knock us off, there's a fairly big barrier to entry. You know, there's a lot of engineering in this thing. You know, you can copy it, but, you know, you're going to infringe our patents, and we know how to. It's very clear that we can go and who we go and sort of attack legally. But also, if you wanted to invest all that time and money, you know, it's not that big a market in the professional side, isn't it? So, you know, it's sort of a product in itself sort of lends itself a bit as a barrier to other people sort of knocking it off. But yeah.
And the support and endorsement of the ACB.
Oh yeah. I mean, we have long-term contracts with our customers that obviously help as well.
And you got in and out of Dubai, okay?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting going through these things with customs because that's a gun case over there, so it always raises a few eyebrows. Yeah.
Some of the cricket tragics up the back there.
Very interesting. I just asking the question: when the bail is lifted, it automatically lights up. What if it then drops back onto the stumps?
Yeah, it turns off. Oh, sorry.
So it goes. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah, just automatically turns off.
Rob.
Oh, good catch.
Congratulations on your development. You're no relation to our Zing, are you, over here? Zing? Where's Zing? we've got a Zing here.
No, sorry.
No relation?
No.
You do the stumps as well as the...
Yes.
So how do you stop the players after a game saying, test that stump's mine and running away with it?
Yeah, no, we get onto that. We're pretty proactive about that. We generally give the tournament organisers a ring before, the day before, like a final, and we also clue up our operators, and the key is you got to get it back before it gets in the kit bag. Once it's in the kit bag, you got a problem. So we just, and the umpires are actually amazing. One thing I've got to say with our involvement with this is just dealing with the umpires. Those guys, you really got to have a lot of respect for those guys. They've got a lot of stuff on, and they're just proactive, can-do blokes. So we often have those guys coming up to us and, you know, saying, I got a bail, I got it off, you know, so-and-so. He was, you know, trousering that one, but I got him. And my mum is very good. I got a phone call from her the other day and said, Jimmy Anderson just stole one of your stumps. I said, good on you, Mum. So I got the Channel 9 operator. I said to him, go down there and tell Jimmy Anderson that my mum is going to come over and smack you on the bum. Gave it straight back.
Thanks. Sorry, first of all, Denny. No, but Denny's first. He's got the microphone. Speak in the right at the very top. It's on.
Hello? Yeah. Congratulations, first of all, being an Aussie.
Oh, beauty. Yeah,
Second of all, being a South Aussie and coming up with an amazing invention. Now, my question is, do you think you would have had trouble if it wasn't for the Big Bash? Like traditional cricket is very for whites. Everything is still in a way the old way.
Well, no, I don't, because obviously Big Bash was, the second revolution in cricket after Kerry Packer's World Series cricket, when that spawned a lot of innovation, helmets, stump cams. So, obviously the Big Bash was a great vehicle for this. I knew that you could that was a great opportunity, which is sort of what spawned it. But the thing is, when I said earlier that I spent 6 months trying to kill the idea, I invited people over for barbecues and just had a little prototype that I made out of PVC tubing, and I got every type of person you can think of, conservative cricket fans, non-cricket fans, like my dad and my brother, and just people I thought would hate it. And I would just say, hey, I'll give you $5 if you can knock the bails off that set of stumps there. And they'd sort of throw the ball and go, oh my God. And they would all had this universal positive reaction. They'd say, it's a new thing, they're putting it into cricket next year. And they went, fantastic. So, the market research we did, it was clear that almost universal sort of enthusiasm for the product. So, yeah, the answer is I reckon it would have got into Test cricket, or it certainly would have got into one-day internationals.
Adriano? Steve Larkin.
Thanks.
My question, you talked before about engineering as a process and that we don't do it very well in Australia.
Yeah.
Is that because of the conservatism of everybody around the process?
I just don't think it's taught properly in the universities. Like, what I find is, particularly with engineers, is they'll approach designing a product like my daughter would design a Christmas card. The tongue will go out and they'll start, that's a good idea, and they'll just sort of go down that rabbit hole. But it's that upfront first stage, when you sort of you've got an idea for a product and you've got to get expansive, lots of different ideas, investigate them, lots of different experiments. I just don't see it being done sort of proactively much at all in engineering. And I just sort of wonder whether it's actually taught in the universities. What I find is it's just, here's a solution, I kind of like that, and I'm just going to go for it until I find out it doesn't work. And then you just have this big loop. So that's something that we're always sort of focusing on.
One more down here before we go through that.
Hi, Bronte.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Speak to the top, please.
Yep, thank you. My question is obviously, I would expect that you've been trying to think of other application of the core technology you've got there to diversify as well from cricket, I expect, maybe.
Sorry, for what?
Have you been considering diversifying the core technology and apply it to other sports or other ideas?
Yeah.
Today I didn't have any wine, so I don't have a lot of ideas, but, I guess, like in tennis, they've got the beep on the net, the whole net top could light up. The ball, could a tennis ball have that inside while it's traveling? And, for example, detect the line that is outside the lines that needs to be in lights just when it goes on.
We have some other things I obviously can't talk about, confidential, but yeah. What we like to focus on is sort of the high-end stuff, how we can add value to sport and improve the way the sport is played and sort of experienced by spectators, all sort of participants, and really it's just up to your imagination. What we love about this is this happens in front of camera. Like, there are other technologies that sort of jiggery-pokery behind the scenes, but this happens in real time. What you see is what you get, basically. So, yeah, they're the sort of things we like to do, and yeah, we have other stuff going. But we also have to focus on there's still a lot more cricket we can do, so we sort of balancing that.
John, you've been waiting patiently up the back.
Thank you. Tell me, sir.
Speak into the top of the microphone, please.
It's a great innovation. Tell me, how long will they last? Will it last for 1 day, 2 days, a match, a whole season, or several seasons?
These stumps, we've never had one break, apart from the second game we did. We've gone through we did a couple of years of improvement, but right now these things just do not break. We don't sell them, we supply them, so they come back to base and we strip them and rebuild them.
But that's the electronic bales, so they still continue to work after they've been knocked off a few times?
Sorry?
The electronic bales?
Oh, the bales, yeah, I mean, there is an attrition rate on the bales, so we'll probably, have a dead bale maybe once every 6th game, but it doesn't die functionally. It's generally a mechanical breakage, which doesn't affect the bale, the way it functions, and it's sort of intentional the way we've designed that a bit, sort of protects the electronics. When that happens, the umpires carry spares, and it's quite clear when it happens, and they just swap them over. So we've never, I can't remember having a bale that's actually broken and impacted a game.
I was going to introduce you as a aspiring cricket coach, a leg spinner, a patron of the club. And
Stolen my thunder. I was going to just ask how long, because historically the old wooden bales used to break.
Yeah.
In a grey ground every season you break 4 or 5 bales.
Yeah.
So they don't ever physically break these.
They do, but probably on average about once every 6 games. But it never breaks, it never snaps. It's just like, one of the spigots will bend. And when that happens, it's actually designed to let go. When that happens, it's just totally obvious it's happened. We just swap it over. But, it doesn't. Once that's happened, it's off the stumps. So just a new pristine one gets put on.
Question here from Steve.
Yeah, thank you, Bronte. Wonderful invention, and I was very interested. You've answered a couple of questions I had in mind from other speakers or other members who've asked you questions. But one of the things that's occurred to me, you said you own the stumps, so they're not sold to the ACB, or I imagine these used or in other places. But it occurs to me that in a retail sense, there's a massive market for kids in cricket. So to me, that's where you might use China as a manufacturer, but
already have.
You want to capture that, because I just think that there were 42,000 here last night, and stunning, and those bales and the stumps were.
We have some branded products.
$120 on the line.
Yeah. And in Rebel Sport.
Thank you. I just think it's great, but I also thought the question from Adrian about other sports. There must be other sports where this sort of technology that you're using has other application. But congratulations, well done, and great to see another South Australian company doing something very innovative.
That's good, thanks.
On a world stage.
Yeah. Thanks.
Now, two last questions. Albert Ben Simon.
Mine's a very quick question. Does it come with batteries?
Well, these do. And the ones in retail do as well.
Very good. And in different colours too, Albert.
But actually, can I just add one thing? That's actually one of the benefits of these, like Stump Cam, for example, that's connected underground through underground cabling in most of the ground. So these just totally self-contained. All you do is put them in the ground, so it's very, very easy. We did that intentionally, so there was no barrier for cricket to take it on.
Last quick one from Rob.
Thank you. Steve covered a lot of my questions, but I was intrigued. You mentioned, obviously we're selling it in Australia, or leasing it in Australia, but how many other cricket associations are taking it on stage?
IPL, Board of Control for Cricket in India, ECB, English Cricket Board, New Zealand Cricket, Cricket South Africa, Caribbean Premier League, Pakistan Super League. We've even done games in the US. So yeah, just about everyone. Oh, and Sri Lanka too. Sri Lanka as well. Yeah.
Can I have a go?
Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you. I've been wanting to do that. Bronte, I wanted to reassure our group today that I'm not on a commission, but it is worth going online and seeing some of the stuff that Bronte does. The other thing that's come up is that no, Bronte's not related to Zing, but Bronte's my younger brother. One last question, Bronte, before I wrap up. Where are you based?
We're in Port Adelaide.
Port Adelaide? Oh, isn't that... Oh, that's amazing. Well, Bronte, on behalf of the club, can I please offer you a token? It's our Adler lightsaber pen for that 3 a.m. idea that you get. Write it down for God's sake, and we'll welcome you. We're going to welcome Bronte as a member to the club shortly. So here we go.
Thank you.
Thanks.